cut. Welcome to the top cut. Welcome to the top cut. Welcome to the top cut. Top cut. Welcome to the top cut. Welcome to the top cut. Welcome to the top cut.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into today's episode of the Top Cut Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast. My name is Sunny. I'm here with my co-host, Giant Skyhawk.
Ah, shoot. You found me. I've escaped the nest.
Truly, he is the largest and the Skyhawkiest.
You guys.
So, yeah. Well, of course, we want to thank you all for being here today, and of course, we're going to go ahead and get all of the sponsor segments out of the way. So a huge thank you, of course, to Steelfox Games and ETB Games. Those are my two locals that I go to all the time for their continued support of me and the podcast. Of course, we also want to thank Gem Accessories for their continued support, and if you are interested in getting some new Dragon Shield products like their new custom sleeves, be sure to go ahead and check those out on the Dragon Shield store, and we have affiliate links for those down below. Now, of course, we also want to thank all of our wonderful patrons for their continued support of the podcast. If you want to hear the funny patron name ad read, you can go ahead and hear all the patron names at the end of the episode. If you're interested in getting that extra episode every week, you can go ahead and get that by subscribing to our Patreon at the $5 and up tier. I think the names are in the $1 tier, and also in that $1 tier, you get access to the audio versions of episodes, usually early the night before. We're trying to get back in the habit of doing that, so you know, be ready for that. And I think we're going to try to do a live stream for our $10 nut patrons maybe Sunday. We'll see. But
we'll find out.
Right. So with that said, let's go ahead and get on into today's episode. What do you say, Skyhawk?
I'm absolutely interested. I've done a little tiny bit of prep work for this, but I've tried to come in as blind as possible. I believe you're here.
Not too much, I hope.
I believe you're here to teach us about the ways of 2011, 2012 Edison format, or is that 2010, 2011?
So Edison format, that's a great way for me to introduce the format. So when we talk about Edison format, we're talking about the Time Wizard format of March 2010. So, essentially, for those that don't know, maybe returning players that are new to the game, at the beginning of last year, so the beginning of 2022, Konami announced that they would be supporting alternative formats within Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is something that we've been asking for a long time. I think it just took a little bit different form than what a lot of people were expecting. So, one of the formats that they're supporting is called Time Wizard format, where you can go in and pick a certain time in the game's history. And like I said, in Edison's case, it is March 2010. And it's that ban list, everything up to the Shining Darkness. If it's in the Shining Darkness, it is not legal. But everything before that, you're in Edison format. So Edison format is beloved for being a very diverse format. And it is also extremely unsolved. Even though we've been labbing it to the moon and back for the last 2 years, literally all the time new decks come out where they were like, whoa, this deck is cracked. And as recently as, I'm not kidding, 2-3 weeks ago, a new contender deck was made within the format, and really good high-end contender deck.
Yeah, that's the one that caused the Blazewing Butterfly buyout, right?
Yes, it is. So there is a Gemini deck that is, it's good, it's cool, it's something. I built it. It's fun. So I have been a huge fan and proponent of Edison format for a long time. Skyhawk, if I'm not mistaken, you were interested but never really got into it because you really care more about advanced.
Yeah, it's there are definitely formats I would like to go back and play, but I've never really been able to dedicate the time or the interest to go and learn them again. I've dabbled in Vegas format, which is kind of like a subsection of Hat. And I have played matches of Edison before with rather heinous lists. I've basically been playing. The only few matches that I've played have basically just been like vanilla Dino beats with just a break turbo. So my knowledge of the format is mostly just what I've seen on E3's channel.
Of course,
kind of off and on. But other than that, I don't know too much. So
E3 is Ed, and Edison. E3 is, in my opinion, the definitive source for all Edison content, both for new players entering the format and players that are looking to know and hear about the new latest greatest wave in Edison format. There are certainly other players that maybe have a little bit more of an in-depth understanding of the intricacies of the format. Players that were playing the format at that time and even some of the best players in Edison format right now. As Edison format sits, some of the best players in that format topped YCS Edison. Even though the format has developed to such an insane degree that the top 16 of YCS Edison, if you look at it, the top 16, SJC Edison. It was the last SJC, actually. So if you look at the format of SJC Edison, it was either the last SJC or the first YCS. I don't remember which. But if you look at I'll just call it YCS Edison because it's easier. If you look at the format for YCS Edison, it is the actual event itself. There's kind of, I think in the top 16, there's like 14 different decks or 13 different decks, something like that. So there's no real hold on what the best deck is. There was no real consensus at the time, and there still isn't a consensus on what the best deck is. There's a consensus on like the top 5, but I remember I was watching E3 hosts these tournaments called RBET, Really Big Edison Tournament. And
I love that.
He was hosting the... yeah, it's wonderful.
Incredible acronym.
And they were hosting the first ever live in-person RBET. I think it was a 64-man tournament, Swiss with Top Cut. The round 1 feature was they were hosting the tournament in California. Round 1 feature was 2 individuals that are on 2 different ends of the spectrum of Edison format. One was a creator called Ragnark, and he plays different frog variants and different monarch variants. I think at that particular event, he was playing a deck named KFC, right? He is as new wave into Edison as you can get. His opponent was a guy that topped YCS Edison playing Machina Gadget, and he was playing card for card his exact list that he topped with. Wait for it. He kept the deck together all this time, and it was the exact same cards.
That's cool.
It's crazy.
It's
crazy.
That's such a beautiful piece of history to have. Like I know I've definitely like pieced apart decks as I've kind of evolved into playing, but
of course
there are definitely cards that I still have. Like for example, my first ever locals, I accidentally bought Magic the Gathering size sleeves. I bought standard size. I still keep my Lost World tokens in those sleeves, just as kind of a reminder. But I can't imagine being able to be like, basically to go back in time to pull out exactly the same deck and go.
I have a friend of mine that topped YCS Dallas 2012 with Dino Rabbit. He still has that exact Dino Rabbit deck, card for card, still in all of them, still in the same build. He keeps the deck together. Beautiful. Crazy. Yeah. I mean, and it's a beautiful deck, by the way. I mean, original first secret tour guide, secret rescue rabbit. I mean,
the secret rabbits are so good.
The duelist pack Kabuzals and Sabersaurus.
I have those as well. Though.
Yeah. So, but I think that it's not just a great format for people looking to go back and experience old Yu-Gi-Oh! The really unique thing about Edison format is that it's a deck builder's like dream, because you actually have time to sit down, lab the format really intricately, and you don't have to worry about a set coming out in a month that completely throws all your work out the window. So you can really get into the nitty-gritty of it and build your deck exactly how you want it. And something even as what's the word I'm looking for? Unassuming as Geminis can be competitive. It really is a spectacular format.
Very nice. Okay, so I am coming from the outside, so I have no idea what's good. I've been through a little bit. The last kind of that I understand is that I know at one point Vayu Turbo, so that's Blackwing Vayu the something, was really was really popular. I know
Blackwing Vayu, the Emblem of Honor.
Emblem of Honor. My little brother actually had an ulti of that when we were younger. Pull it out of some old packs.
That's a shame that I bet he got rid of it at some point.
I might still have it, actually. It might still be here. I'd have to check.
They're obscenely expensive now.
Yeah. Actually,
I have one, and it's beautiful.
The binder is here. It might be there, actually. But
I know exactly where mine is. It's in that bag right there. I could get it in like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful card.
And I know I've seen people play stuff like Fairy. I saw a match that you played at London. Like I know, I do one thing that I do know is that I think at the time people were like, Quick Draw Dandy Warrior is the thing, but now that deck is just kind of like fine. Like
yeah,
it's I know Welladad is a thing. People have been trying to do like Psychic Zombie stuff. It seems like it's a super wide open format. So you mentioned there was consensus about like the top 5 kind of decks. What are those?
Sure.
What can I expect at like the highest levels of competitive Edison play?
So I think that the most important thing about Edison format, there's basically, yeah, and I've got the Edison format Discord server pulled up right here. We'll leave a link to it in the description below. And I want to say really quick, if you're interested in playing Edison format at a high level and you love Edison format, but maybe you don't have a huge community around you, but you're really into it, they do have regular tournaments in the Edison format Discord server. And in fact, this weekend, there is an RBET being held, and it's being held via Dueling Book. So you can play from anywhere, but if you just join the RBET Discord server, this weekend, July 1st and 2nd, they're having that tournament. And I think next weekend, the following weekend, so July 7th to 9th, if you're anywhere in Raleigh, North Carolina, or if you're going to Nats and somehow didn't know, they run at Nationals, they're going to be running side events for Edison format. I want to say at YCS 250th, just in LA, they ran like over 100 Edison format side events. So it's definitely something worth playing, worth doing. It's a ton of fun. You should absolutely check it out. But getting back to your question, I'm in the Edison format Discord server. So they have things broken up by tiers: competitive, rogue, and then like casual and jank decks. And the competitive tier has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think that some of these can be condensed into one category. For example, there's Dragon Turbo and Dragons, both in competitive. I think that both decks are good, but you can just say Dragons and just say that there's different builds of Dragons. Yep. There's Blackwings and Vayu Turbo here in separate channels, but they really are both Blackwing decks at heart. So realistically, you can, those could probably be combined into just Blackwings are competitive, right? And just say that there's different kinds of Blackwing decks. So I would say your top 5 decks right now within Edison format are Blackwings, Dragons, Fairies, Frogs, and I'm just going to say Hero, because there's a couple of different Hero decks. There's Diva Hero and there's Hero Beat. So you have a couple of different ways you can play elemental heroes in this format, which is always cool. So I think that there are right below that. There's probably about 20 decks that are in tier 2 that you can play, and they're all really competitive. But understand that you are going to see fairies and dragons and black wings and probably Machina and frogs and heroes. Those are those are the cream of the crop of Edison format. Well, I didn't even say zombies. Zombies is also like cream of the crop. So there's like 6 best decks. But I think a lot of people would say fairy is probably like the best deck, but it's really hard to play. So I wouldn't play fairies, but it's a very good deck.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, I am a big fan of the formats that I love to play in are definitely the diverse ones. So it seems like sounds like there are like 30-ish decks that you could probably get away with playing, which
it's more than
makes
that,
me happy as a
There's 30 decks that are competitive.
as a jank enthusiast.
Yeah, if you include jank, there's probably 50 plus decks that are playable.
Excellent. That's good for me.
Yeah, but you'll see a lot of the same cards come up, so you're not ever going to be like surprised at like an incredibly overly jank card.
Yeah.
And even if you do have like mega jank come at you, realistically, 1, it's jank, and 2, it's not like reading Nirvana High Paladin every time your opponent plays a card. It's a reasonable amount of text.
Back when text was reasonable. So speaking of...
reasonable in length, not in actual...
In a time before problem-solving card text.
Literally, dude. Oh, don't get me started.
Anyway, so...
Actually, no, get me started.
Well, I was going to say that I think that's a question for maybe a little bit later. But speaking of the cards and the decks that you can play in the format, so it's the March 2010 card pool / ban list. So what is the last legal set? And is there anything like important to know about the ban list for this? Like, what is there anything that's like weird that you might not expect that is legal or not legal?
Okay, so this was the highest attended SJC of all time, 2,175 players. It was the last SJC. It was the 75th SJC of Edison, New Jersey, hence the name Edison.
Yep.
It is the deck that won, like you said, Quick Draw Dandy Warrior was Jeff Jones. This was his first win. And this renowned format was very short. It lasted from the release of the March 1st, 2010 TCG Forbidden Limited list until May 10th, the day before Shining Darkness released in North America and shifted the meta entirely. That's just the What is Edison format. Let's go into the rules section. I'm just going to click on the ban list right here. Okay, so I think the first thing to note is that there's a lot of cards that are legal in GOAT format that are not legal here. So things like Blackluster Soldier is banned. DMOC is banned, right? Your Magician of Faith, Sinister Serpent, Tribe Infecting Virus, Tsukiyomi, they're all banned, okay? Your Pot of Greed, Delinquent Duo, Graceful Charity, Dimension Fusion, all these blowouts, Metamorphosis, Regeki, Primat, it's all banned. Monster Reborn is banned. Okay. Ring of Destruction is banned. There's a ton of decks there's a ton of cards that were just simply powerful blowout cards in GOAT format that don't exist here. Now, also Thousand Eyes Restrict is banned. But Meta is also banned, so it's like, The only synchro that is banned is Dark Strike Fighter for obvious reasons. Also, this is pre-errata Dark Strike Fighter because all cards in this format are so the text, something to know is if you are playing Edison format, the cards in this format operate as they did at the time. So cards that now say once per turn but weren't at the time are no longer once per turn.
So
like Dark Strike Fighter.
Yeah, Dark Strike Fighter. Some other examples that I think Rescue Cat, it would be pre-errata.
Yes, Rescue Cat is extremely relevant. It's one of the best cards in the game.
Yeah, Sandgan would be pre-errata.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. Are there any other... Any other relevant cards that have erratas that work differently?
I'm looking at the ban list to see if there's anything here that catches my eye. Brain
Like I know,
control is super relevant.
Yeah,
Brain control is pre-errata here, as is mind control.
Because
actually, mind control might not have had an errata.
Mind control never had an errata. Brain control is brain control in this format. I imagine can target anything, whereas the errata said it says it can only target normal summonable monsters. I assume that's what it is.
Okay, that is the errata. They're the most important errata in all of Edison format, as far as I am concerned, is Future Fusion is pre-errata.
Oh God, that's terrifying.
And it is maybe, in my opinion, it's the most powerful card in Edison format. It's limited, but it's extremely powerful.
Yep.
Also, Brionica. Brionica is pre-errata.
Oh, so it's not once per turn? Very cool.
It's not once per turn. No.
The Raikou works differently too, right?
Raikou actually does work a little bit differently. So Raikou is one of those cards. It's kind of like Necro Valley. It's been errated
12
million times.
Yep.
Raikou mills in Edison format. You target, and on resolution, it mills.
Got it. Okay.
So, yeah. There's been times when it milled as cost, times when it didn't. You know what? Actually, here's the best part about Edison format. There's just an individual card rulings section where you can just go to any card in Edison format and just find the card. And it's probably on this list. Raikou, Lightsworn Hunter.
Oh, functional.
The flip effect.
There's even a functional. There's even a functional errata page.
There is, yes.
Actually, that's amazing.
Flip effect activates and resolves on the field. If flipped in damage step, it activates in sub-step 6 resolve effects. This effect resolves sequentially. A, destroy the target if one was selected. Then B, mill the top 3 cards of your deck. If you want to destroy one card, target one face-up, face-down on field at activation. Milling 3 cards from the top of your deck is always the last thing to happen. This can cause some effects to miss their timing, such as Gear Town and Dimensional Alchemist. So,
got it. Yeah.
Something very good to know.
I can see some other cards too. Obviously, Necro Valley. It's funny that you bring up that example because Necro Valley will have whatever text it had at the time.
Yes.
There's also some funny cards like Union Monsters work a little bit differently at this point in time, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. I think they do, actually, now that you say that.
Yeah. Gear Frame, probably the most relevant of them. And then Prisma also has like a little bit of a difference too. Like, but it's really the website, honestly, now that I'm looking at it, is super well structured. Like, yeah, they've got a ruling section. They've got, these are the cards that function differently.
Armory Arm. Armory Arm is also pre-errata, which it's
people do the,
they restructured it. Yeah, Armory Arm Colossal Fighter OTK is just a thing that you can do here.
I was gonna say Armory Arm Colossal Fighter is a thing that I know you can do in this format. Well, I mean, theoretically you could do it in any format, but it's a thing you actually do in this one.
So here's the functional erratas: Armory Arm, Black Garden, Brain Control, Bryonic, Catapult Turtle, Cyber Phoenix, DD Survivor, Dark End Dragon. Darkness Approaches. Oh,
that's funny.
Darkness Approaches can change a monster to face down attack position.
I cannot believe that you did not know this. So for those,
I'd never heard of this card. I was going through. Okay, you tell the story.
No, you tell it. You're the one who found the card.
Okay, I was going through my bulk and I found this card and I was like, this card looks interesting, because I just stop if it's an old card. When I'm going through my bulk, if I see an old card that I've never seen before or heard of, I just stop and read it, because like you never know when you're going to come across something that actually ends up being busted in Edison format, but nobody's ever heard of it because at the time people were like, oh, it's not good, and so it never got talked about. So unless somebody stops and reads these cards, they'll never be played. Like Telekinetic Power Well is actually crazy, right? Reinforced Truth is actually a pretty decent card, just needs to be broken, right? So I was going through and I found the Darkness Approaches, which says Discard 2 cards from your hand. Select one face-up monster on field. Flip it to face-down defense position. Or no, I'm sorry. Flip it face down, but do not change its battle position. It says that on the card. Do not change its battle position. So, in this format, it can change a monster to face-down attack position.
Welcome to hell.
A face-down attack position monster cannot declare attacks, and it can be flip summoned to face-up attack position.
It creates just some nightmarish ruling problems. So they eventually eroded it as a game promo. But anyway.
Yeah. Elemental Prisma, Future Fusion, Goyo Guardian, Light and Darkness Dragon, Light End Dragon, all Lightsworn monsters, Machina Gear Frame, and all Union monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I Mark of the Rose. Lots of interesting cards.
Yeah.
My Body.
I'm looking at the the limited and the semi-limited list, and there's some scary stuff.
There's a lot of interesting cards here. I just didn't get to it.
Yeah. There's some,
we got distracted.
There's some scary stuff in here. Cold Wave is legal for some reason.
It's not that bad of a card in this format. I'm just gonna say a lot of decks don't even worry about playing it.
I was gonna say I guess in a lower power format it's harder to OTK unless you're playing something a little more gimmicky.
Dragon Turbo is like the deck that uses this. Everything else, it's fine.
Heavy Storm being at 1, along with Mystical Space Typhoon is just so funny to me.
Yeah, MST and Heavy and Cold Wave all at 1.
Yeah. Dust Shoot legal. Return from the Different Dimension legal.
Dust Shoot sucks, I'll admit. It's like a one-of blowout.
Yeah. Well, 'cause I imagine it's like, it's insane if you draw it going first, but it's absolutely terrible if you see it any later than that. Like, and then...
yeah, exactly.
Some other spooky stuff. Ultimate Offering at 2 and Royal Oppression at 2 is a little cringe.
Royal Oppression was the boogeyman of the format for a while. Some people say it's the best card in the format. I disagree. They're like, oh, it's the best card because it stops Future Fusion. I'm like, yeah, Future Fusion is the best card because it lets you play the game.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, other than like, there's like, obviously there's like a couple bits of nonsense in here, but like the rest of this is pretty reasonable. Snipe Hunter at 1 also is just hilarious.
Snipe Hunter is broken.
It's crazy. Yeah, cards ridiculous. So
yeah, let's load up your graveyard for Dark Arm Dragon, which is at 1. So here's what I would consider to be like the boogeymen of the format. These are the cards that are like, they're problems. I'll be honest, they're powerful. Mm-hmm. Chaos Sorcerer is really strong, like really strong. Dark Arm, it's limited though. Dark Arm Dragon, that card sucks. It's when your opponent drops that Dark Arm Dragon, it is usually the end of the game. I'm trying to think here. Rescue Cat is a really powerful card, but it's not always the end of the game because it can be a little bit difficult to loop it in this format. Mm-hmm. BrainCon and Heavy are blowouts, but Heavy's kind of cool, honestly, because it keeps your opponents honest. So, and honest is at 1. Heavy is cool because it keeps your opponents from just, well, let me just set my Royal Oppressions and this and that. And sometimes you just force out their Solemn Judgment. It's like, if you have Solemn or Starlight Road, you have Solemn or Starlight Road. It's just a thing. Important to know, Mind Crush is at 1, but Mind Crush is pre-errata. So if you declare Mind Crush and declare a card, you get to verify your opponent's hand. So
yeah, I prefer those rules.
I agree, to be honest with you. Magic Cylinder to 1 is very funny, but it's not a card you see very often. I think, like you said, Return at 1 can be kind of scary. If your opponent flips Return and they're playing zombies, the game is over.
Yeah.
Bryonic is really powerful pre-errata, as is Goyo Guardian. Goyo Guardian, when people first started labbing this format, they were like, Goyo Guardian's the best card in the format, it's broken. Some decks don't even play it anymore. It's cool, but it's honestly not that crazy. Where it gets crazy is, let's say I have like a level 3 or 4 on my field, and I make a Goyo, and I go to combat, and I run over my opponent's Gale. Then Goyo's really crazy because I have a Synchro 6 or 7 or 8 play.
Yeah.
But outside of exactly that, yes, unless you're summoning back a Tuner or a Stardust, Goyo's like fine. But Stardust is a lot worse in this format because Goyo exists. So, I don't know. I think Goyo is fine. I don't think Goyo is actually a problem in this format, really.
Yeah, love that they made you need to use Earth for this, and in this format you just don't have to at all.
Yeah, in this format you just summon Goyo. The only semi-limited cards that are crazy, Honest is semied. So, as it turns out, Dandy's at 2. So, plants are playable, but Glow Up Bulb doesn't exist yet, so that's cool. Gold Sark is very good. Mm-hmm. Judgment Dragon, I hate that card. Judgment Dragon should be banned, but it's not, so. Black Whirlwind is at 2, which is a consistency thing, but if your opponent plays 2 Black Whirlwind on you, you just want to run into traffic. It's awful. You
just get drowned in advantage super fast.
Yeah. And then Skill Drain, Ultimate Offering, and Royal Op are all at 2, which
yucky.
It's not fun.
I mean, Skill Drain's at more copies now than it was then, so I guess we can give Edison format that for sure. So
the big ones as far as rulings, and this is coming from E3, he messaged me this. Raikou working differently, like we said, where it mills on resolution after it destroys. Goyo being not requiring an Earth Tuner. Brionac not being once per turn. Red MD is not limited in this format. Red MD is at 3, pre-errata in this format. And it's really good, and the entire reason that the Dragon deck is playable. That card's really good.
Makes
Red
sense.
MD is crazy.
Yeah, I'm. This is maybe a bit off topic. I'm looking at the decks lists right now. We can get into this a bit later. I'm looking at one of the Dragon decks. This deck is cool. I can see.
Which one? Okay, so are you looking at Dragon or Dragon Turbo?
I'll give you some cards, and then maybe you can answer that question for me. So
sure.
This list has 2 Red MD, 3 Red Eyes Wyvern. I presume to get the Red MD.
Yes.
A Prime Material Dragon, 2 Kawaki Mero Drago, 3...
This could be anything.
Yeah, 3 Debris Dragon, 1 Exploder Dragon. It's got a lot of back row. So it's playing 1 Future Fusion.
Okay, so that's not Dragon Turbo. So Dragon Turbo doesn't play any back row.
It's got 3 Upstarts, 2 Snowman Eaters, 1 Mega Hamster, 2 Raikou.
Yeah. Mega Hamster's a really cool card because it gets Raikou, and Raikou is one of the most powerful cards in the format because it's like a guaranteed, I'm going to destroy something on your field.
Yeah, removal that can also be a bit of graveyard setup. And also setting a card means that your opponent has to like immediately play around that pressure. And it also means that it probably also means that you can bluff Raikou a lot of the time too. And then maybe your opponent plays a little differently. Anyway,
yeah, because of Snowman Eater, Raikou, and Nimble Hamster, you can actually bluff Raikou a lot because there's quite a handful of really good sets in the format. Mm-hmm. Quite a lot of cards that you don't mind setting, and as a result, Nobleman of Crossout is a heck of a card in this format.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, so I guess that's like important ruling stuff. How about rules? Because I know draw for turn is a thing, but I don't know much about anything else.
That's really important. At this time, if you're going first, you still draw for turn.
Love that.
Very important for somebody that maybe didn't play the game until after that.
And I guess back at this point, that's less crazy. Obviously, like if that was true now, it would be ridiculous. But
it is. It is objectively correct in this format to go first.
Yeah.
Every time. There's no like going second strategy. It doesn't exist. You're not OTKing. It is objectively correct to always have an extra card.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And card advantage is like a real thing that you have to be aware of. You don't want to just go, like, it's really common in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Which, to be fair, I think card advantage in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is also a really underrated thing that you need to keep track of and be aware of. Whereas, it's underrated now how important card advantage can be in certain situations, how you don't want to overcommit because of blowouts. Whereas in this format, a single 2-for-1 trade can mark the end of the game. Normal summoning a gadget is very powerful in this format because you go +1 for free and maintain your card advantage. It's very powerful.
Yep. Okay. Are there any other like functional rules changes other than the draw for turn? Like I think you mentioned something about priority.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah. So the biggest rule change between EDISON format and advanced format is that you need to understand how priority works. So turn player has priority on ignition effects on summons. So what this means is, if, for example, in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, if I normal summon Stratos, it triggers automatically because it's a trigger effect, not an ignition effect.
Yep.
So it will always trigger first on summon. Whereas if I do something like, I'm trying to think of an example of a normal summon. Okay, perfect. Card Trooper. In modern Yu-Gi-Oh, if I normal summon Card Trooper, I ask my opponent, do you have a response? And my opponent has the opportunity to activate something like, for example, Fiendish Chain, right? You can activate it in response to the summon of Card Trooper and negate Card Trooper's effect. And Card Trooper, as a result, never had a chance to activate its effect. Now, the way it works in EDISON format is, if I normal summon Card Trooper, then I have priority as turn player to activate its ignition effect before my opponent has a chance to respond. Because I, as turn player, have turn player priority to conduct an action. And because summoning something does not start a chain, there's nothing for my opponent to do but wait for my next action. So there is no passing priority on a summon because the summon doesn't actually start a chain or anything. So there's nothing to respond to, right?
Right.
So
I imagine the exception is like the summoning window. So like if you were to activate something like Judgment to negate the summon.
It's exactly
so like,
what I was about to say,
so
yeah.
like the summon window would start a chain, but the actual successful summon of the monster does not.
Correct. So if I normal summon Card Trooper, I say to my opponent, do you have a response to the summon itself? And when my opponent says, Fiendish Chain, I'm like, no. Do you have a response? Like, is the summon good? Can I successfully summon Card Trooper?
Yeah.
And that's when they have to have like you said, like a solemn judgment or something of that sort that would negate the summon itself. If the summon is successful, then I, as turn player, can say, okay, with priority, I'm going to activate Card Trooper's effect, mill 3 for cost. Do you have a response? And that's when my opponent can say, okay, I'm going to activate Fiendish Chain here, which would be really stupid because Card Trooper already did what it needed to do, but you get the point.
Yeah.
I can normal summon Lila, Lightsworn Sorceress, I believe. And I say normal summon Lila, priority, activate effect, shift her to defense to pop a back row. Now, my opponent can chain Fiendish Chain or whatever right there and stop the Lila. But the point is that I can do that before my opponent actually has a chance to respond. Now, this is kind of a boogeyman in a lot of sense because there are some cards that are extraordinarily powerful with priority. A good one is Brionac, but Brionac in particular has some really funny implications with priority because let's say I use a Goblin Zombie and a Plague Spreader Zombie to make Brionac. And for those that don't know, Goblin Zombie says that when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add a zombie monster with, I think it's 1,800 or less defense from your deck to your hand. Or maybe it's
I think it's 1,200.
Or whatever the number. I think it's 12, actually.
It's 1,200, yep.
Yeah. So you add one with 1,200 defense from your deck to your hand, but it's mandatory. So what this means is, if you synchro with Goblin Zombie and go into Brionac, because Goblin Zombie is mandatory and Brionac is not a quick effect, meaning Brionac can't chain, you cannot declare priority with Brionac and then do Goblin Zombie Chain Link 2. You would have to do Goblin Zombie, activate its effect, and then you ask your opponent for a response. And then once the game state is open, then you can activate Brionac. Does that make sense?
Interesting. So in
priority
this case,
essentially disappears when there's a mandatory effect that has to trigger and starts a chain, or an optional effect that you feel like you need to activate right there.
So in that case, you can't there's no Bryonic chain link 2. It just can't activate in that same chain as the mandatory effect, and you have to wait until an open game state to activate it. Got it.
Right,
Okay.
because it's not a fast effect. It's not.
I'm with you. I am so glad that they have changed this rule. But
yeah, it really is. It's asinine. It really is. It's, and especially if you think about how much this rule change impacted the metagame, when they changed this ruling, Dino Rabbit as a deck dropped a full tier of competitive play.
Well, yeah, because you could
now
priority Rabbit, right?
Right. It's a difference of normal summon Rescue Rabbit, priority activate effect, banish for cost. Do you have a response? Versus normal summon Rescue Rabbit. Do you have a response? Effect failure. Okay.
Yep.
Now that Rescue Rabbit is sitting there dead in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Which, in turn, created the Macro Rabbit deck, but still. Literally, the Macro Rabbit deck was created. A lot of people think it was actually created as a response to Mermail to be able to play into the Mermail matchup. It wasn't. It was actually responded specifically to stop effect failure. It was actually made specifically to stop effect failure.
Got it. Some fascinating history right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is kind of off topic. We already mentioned kind of what's good. I'm looking at some deck lists, and there's some interesting stuff that I'm noticing. So if we go to the deck list section, it looks like the most recent tournament that they've got results up for happened last week rather. So it's this DD4 tournament. That's the wrong direction. I gotta click a different way.
Let me ask, are you in the Discord server or on the website?
I'm on the website. So obviously, like, the dragon list is really cool. Prime Material Dragon's very funny. Triple Red Eyes Wyvern is cool. Seeing Snowmanator be a tech. Lots of pulling the rug in the side deck. I imagine this is probably to combat Frog Monarch for tribute summoning stuff. I also think it's super fascinating just to see the different type of stuff. I'm seeing a lot of Fossil Dyna inside decks. Fossil Dyna seems like just decent as a flip, like as an effect when it gets flipped up, let alone as a floodgate. I'm seeing a lot of the frog decks are all siding Vanity's Fiend, as is Diva Hero, because they can like the hero frog stuff, just because like special a guy tribute summon Vanity's Fiend is still good in this time. The Diva Hero deck, I think, is just really, really sick. Like, nobody would ever think to do this unless they had infinite time to brew a format. To be like,
right.
Oh, actually, so like, what if we just play like Deep Sea Diva as a way to make a synchro, and then that sets up Waters for Miracle Fusion? Like,
also, that deck has one of the easiest Armory Arm OTK lines, the Armory Arm Colossal Fighter OTK lines in EDISON format, because you can use, okay, if you have a Malicious in graveyard, right?
Yep.
And nothing else on your field, and you have Elements or Evil Hero, Infernal Prodigy, and Deep Sea Diva in your hand, and your opponent has any monster with 1900 or more attack, you win the game.
Because I guess you go
Special Infernal Prodigy, normal Deep Sea Diva, activate,
Mally, and that's Armory Arm Colossal Fighter.
Colossal Fighter.
That's terrifying.
So the implications of the Armory Arm pre-errata, for those that don't know, Armory Arm pre-errata and Colossal Fighter really works a little bit differently than he did for a while. If I'm not mistaken, there was a ruling change on Colossal Fighter to where when he went to the graveyard, he could not actually target himself to bring himself back. But I don't know if that. I remember hearing that there was like a ruling change on that. But the point is, I want to say the Armory Arm errata change was that when that monster destroys a monster by battle and it burns the opponent, that only happens once per turn. Whereas if in EDISON format, if I equip Armory Arm to my opponent's monster, let's say that monster has Cyber Dragon, 2100 attack, right? If I equip it to Cyber Dragon goes to 3100 because I can equip it to an opponent's monster. And if I have a Colossal Fighter on my field, Colossal Fighter attacks into the Cyber Dragon. I take 300 damage. Colossal Fighter goes to the graveyard. When it gets destroyed by battle, Armor Arm triggers and burns my opponent for 2,800. So, and then Colossal Fighter triggers, summons itself back, and I attack into the Cyber Dragon again. Repeat. Burn my opponent for another 2,800. Repeat again. So I take 900. My opponent takes 81.
That's very silly.
Or 84.
I'm looking some other stuff from April. There's a first place Frog Monarch list. Triple Soul Exchange, triple Econ, triple Upstart. We're playing double Dark Dust Spirit as a blowout for the tribute summon. 3 Caius, 3 Ryza, 3 Thestalos. This is just like wild. I love the Flamvel lists. It's like the engine really is just 3 Fire Dog, 3 Magician, 3 Rekindling. But some people are using it, it looks like, as value to get like a Caius tribute summon to get value out of it. Other people are playing it as a more grindy control deck until you can do a big swing with Rekindling.
So there was a 200-man Edison tournament that was held recently, the April one that you're talking about.
Yeah.
The breakdown, 17 different represented decks.
Really, really sick. I'm seeing
the top cut 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 different decks in top 16.
Oh god. Here's a cool thing. So
including Amaryllis Burn.
I don't know.
Die.
True. I don't know how popular this is. So 3 Pot of Avarice is legal. Looks like the quick draw deck is playing this.
I'm just gonna say actually the Amaryllis Burn deck is super sick. If you have spare Phoenician Cluster Amaryllises and you don't realize it, they are like $15+ a copy.
Shout outs to Caitlin for showing us how that worked. I'm seeing people do the one treacherous trap hole thing. This might have been Joshua Schmidt actually. Top score list. It's funny enough. I only know that this is a thing from Duel Links theory, because in Duel Links you would actually do this, where you would just play this as the only trap card in your deck, and then if you drew it, it was just a blowout. But that's also kind of what it is here, where you're not playing any other traps. You might as well play the one that has like the biggest payoff, and then it's never not dead because you don't have any other traps in your grave. Here's a fairy list. Oh geez, this is cursed. That's Beckoning.
Hey, all of the fairy lists are.
So it's Beckoning Light. There's a bunch of Lightsworn stuff in here. We've got 3 Soul of Purity and Light, and then 3 Herald of Orange, which goes crazy.
Yeah, Herald of Orange Light's broken. There are a couple of hand traps in this format. That is the best one by a mile. And not the most played because it's only playable in the fairy deck, but it is broken.
I see somebody is here with Stun. We got 3 Thunder King Ryo, 3 Banisher of the Radiance, 3 Fossil Dyna, 2 Breaker, 2 Sidra, 2 DD Warrior Lady, a Kaiku, and a Morphing Jar, and all the floodgates you can muster.
We out here.
We're siding Wonghu. We're siding Consecrated Light. Is that DD? I don't even know what that card is. It's DD something. DD Scout maybe? I don't know. This seems like,
probably DD Survivor.
It might be. It's the Metal Gear Solid guy. It's interesting that even when you run into a lot of the same lists, like there are a lot of different tech choices. Like for example, there's the Frog Burn deck I'm seeing from an RBET in March, playing Turbo Booster, as a free guy. Like,
listen. This format is so ridiculously unsolved. We had buyouts on Blazewing Butterfly ultis. We've got, Gemini Soldier, a common from a starter deck in like 2009 is like a $10 card.
Yeah.
Listen.
People are unironically jamming Dimensional Alchemist with, was it Skyscourge Invisil?
It could be Norealis.
I don't know. This isn't Norlaras.
Norlaras? I'm sorry?
This isn't Norlaras. This is,
Norealis?
It's Norlaras.
There's an E in there, buddy.
Yeah, I'm saying the E. Norlaras. Hold on. I have to find this out now. I'm looking up Sky Scourge. Sky Scourge.
Norealis.
Sky Scourge. Okay, maybe it's not Imbecile. It's they're playing Enrise. Okay.
Anyway, it's Norleras.
No, it's Norleras. It's spelled Norleras. Norleras.
Huh.
I'm putting it on screen. They're gonna.
Well, you learn something new every day, folks.
Anyway, I'll take the W's where I can get.
So it's not Norleras?
No, it's Norleras. I could be.
No,
saying
I mean
it
the
wrong.
card in the deck list. You're probably saying it correctly. What I'm saying is I'm sticking to my guns. I don't care. I'll say it wrong forever. It sounds better.
That's fair. It's Sky Scorch.
Also have some supers that look awesome.
I also have the supers. They're gorgeous. I got it for Fluffle. Sky Scourge and Rise is the card. So it's you banish 3 light fairies and a dark fiend, and it's once per turn you can just remove from play a face-up monster on the field. It's like the deck is Chaos Fairy. It's like it's just a banish tool. There's
there is a Chaos Fairy deck that's really cool.
Yeah, there's the Masked Dragon deck that seems to be like dragon stuff. We're playing. Is that Totem Dragon?
Yes, Totem Dragon's crazy.
That's like tons of decks where I'm like I would expect the lists, but people are still jamming like super weird tech. So I really like this a lot.
Yeah, the format is insane. There is no shortage of, hey, wait, this card's actually crazy. Like I said, Telekinetic Powerwell is a common from some core set like 15 years ago, and it's like an $8 common because it's one of the integral parts of one of the best decks, which is Welidad, which is like a zombie Teledad vibe deck. I don't know. It's crazy. It's insane. The deck is crazy, and the format is certifiably insane. There's a reason that people hype up EDISON format so much is because in the minds of many people, EDISON format really is peak Yu-Gi-Oh! Every game goes 15 turns. There is not a single card in the format that as soon as it gets activated, you're like, oh, this is the end of the game. Mainly because there are ways to deck build for all of the worst cards in the game. You can deck build to handle Future Fusion. Play DD Crow. You can deck build to handle Royal Oppression. Play Back Row Removal. You can deck build to handle the powerful Synchros. Play Battle Fader. That's a great playable card in the format, right? Gores, great playable card. You can game plan for so many different things within the format that it really is like I said, it's a deck builder's dream. It's a deck builder's paradise. And it is also a high level cognitive player's paradise because the amount of thought that goes into every decision is outrageous because anything can put you behind on card advantage or anything like that, and you can claw back, but it is a game of attrition, and you really have to understand optimal play. And OTKs, for the most part, outside of Armor Arm Colossal Fighter, OTKs aren't really a thing. Your opponent would have to specifically drop Dark Arm Dragon on top of an already imposing M board that not a lot of decks are capable of putting out.
I know there's like the fish deck, but it's super gimmicky and you have to open well, and it's not that great. So like,
yeah, the fish deck was one of those decks where when people started labbing EDISON format, they said, "Whoa, this deck has the highest ceiling of any new deck." But not long after that, people realized a high ceiling does not make this deck consistent. You run like 8 bricks.
Yep.
And as a result, the deck is cool and the deck is powerful. But 1, it's hard to play. And 2, even if you're capable of playing it, there are so many better options that have been labbed out at this point where the deck is cool and it's competitive, but it's hard to play, it's bricky, and it's just, why play it when there are better decks that do similar things? I would rather play a Return Zombie deck.
Right, that makes sense.
So
well, that's the EDISON format breakdown.
It is.
Do we have
It is
anything
indeed
else
the
that we
Edison
need to
format
note?
breakdown.
Anything else we need to note?
I'm trying. Yeah. I'll say I think we covered everything that's the biggest things to cover. Again, I'll just say be sure to check out EDISONformat.com. It's just EDISONformat.com. You can find tons and tons of resources here for this format. And also, go look at some of the deck lists. Even if you don't really plan on playing the format, if you're a player that played way back in the day and you just have a bunch of really old cards, seriously, go look at some of these deck lists. Any card in any of these deck lists that has one printing is probably at least $5. So you might actually, I'm not even kidding, this is not an exaggeration, you might be sitting on like hundreds of dollars in your ancient bulk and not even realize it. For example, secret rare elemental hero Gaias are like $50, right? Any copy of elemental hero Absolute Zero is probably at least like $8. Any copy. Even cards that have a bunch of printings at common. Lila Lightsworn Sorceress. I think every copy of that card is like $3. Every copy of so many of these cards is outrageously expensive because the format is so popular and so played, and these cards are so old that they don't see very many reprints. So as such, unless we get a dedicated Time Wizard set or a dedicated Edison format set, we're not going to see a lot of these cards get those reprints. So
yeah, I know Junk Archer recently did. They do it like every now and then, but it's not consistent.
I bought like over a dozen copies of Junk Archer because they're 15 cents a piece, and the secret rare is beautiful, and that card's too cheap now. So with that said, let's go ahead and thank all of our wonderful patrons for their continued support of the podcast. So, of course, a huge thank you to Kane Martin, Zyphorus, Big Stinky, Broken Boy 13, Ding Dong, Sisters of the Yangzing, Earth Machine Best Deck, Has Anyone Actually Read Toy Vendor, HH Cyber, I Used to Play Rogue with them, My Mom Got a Job, Is Canada Nickelback, John Leo, Mountain Man, Open Spaghetti, Owen Alvarado, Seto Aiba, Silver Hope, There's Only One Rule, Pop the Baby, Unbanned Number 95, Konami, Understanding and Reading are two different things, Arts... No... Upstart Goblin D's Nuts, Virtually Savior's World, Aaron Gardner, Asami, Ashlish Chaps, Atsuyo, Simple the Silver Castle, Blackwind Silver in the Senate is the best floodgate, Boxwine, come on and get your game on, Duty Booty, Dragon Maidenless Behavior, I'm about to Rika, Glamour Tribute, across these plant nuts in your mouth, Old Man Red, Pin Code 143, Sakitama, Aratama, Nikitama, Cam, Obama, Slaking It Up, and Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious Heavy Samurai. Thank you all so much for your continued support of the podcast. And, of course, with all that said, thank you for tuning into this week's episode. Okay, quick, before my camera runs out of time, do you have any last second questions?
No, actually I don't. I'm excited to play normal monster dinosaurs and completely ignore everything you've just said. And
I'm gonna be honest, that deck's playable.
Stay safe, everybody, and don't run into too much turbulence.
Hey, if you see your UPS driver, give him a bottle of water and tell him you're staying with them in solidarity.
Solidarity.
We're going on strike.
In fact, if you have copies of Solidarity, give them out to your delivery.
No. Those cards are like $8 a piece. Seriously, hold on to them. They're really expensive.
Oh my god, I gotta go get my copies of bulk.
No, I'm not even joking. That card's like kind of expensive. Keep it. Okay, well, hey, thank you everybody for tuning in, and until next time, of course, have a great weekend and enjoy some Edison format at your locals.
Play. Pause.